As health officials collect more data on the coronavirus, information is continually being updated, and the CDC recently reported that 35% of people infected with COVID-19 are asymptomatic and are still as infectious as people that have symptoms. Now, joining us this morning once again with what we need to know to stay safe is Dr. Jen Caudle. Good morning. Always great to see you.
Good morning.
So I want to start with these new numbers. The CDC now saying that 35% of coronavirus patients could be asymptomatic. What exactly does that mean?
That's a great question. So the idea is that everyone with coronavirus, everyone who's infected with coronavirus will not necessarily have symptoms. So when we say the word asymptomatic, we're talking about somebody who's been infected with the virus, but it's not showing the classic symptoms that we've been seeing, the fever, the cough, shortness of breath, muscle aches, and the sort of wide breadth and depth of symptoms that we've been seeing. But they are infected, and they are able to transmit the virus. The problem with being asymptomatic, meaning you have the virus, but you have no symptoms, the problem with that is you may not even know you got the virus, and you can therefore spread it to others potentially. It's very important to understand this concept of asymptomatic infection, and that so many people potentially have coronavirus and just don't know it because they don't have symptoms.
So for those of us who don't know it, right, I could be sitting here right now and be asymptomatic and not know it because I have not been tested at this point. How do we stay healthy? What would you suggest?
Yeah, so this is where face masks really come in. Around the time that the CDC sort of changed its guidance and said, okay, everyone should be wearing a face mask, was when we were starting to get more and more data about asymptomatic infections. We've known for a while that people could be asymptomatic, that they could spread it as an asymptomatic person, but really the extent of how much we've really gathered that over time. One of the biggest things we can do is wearing that mask, wearing a face covering when we go out, and all of this stuff, following all the guidelines, will help us not spread any potential virus that we have to other people. It's a protection not only for other people, but us as well. So wearing that face mask is super important, but also sort of following all the hand hygiene and social distancing rules that we're talking about. These things are in place for many reasons. One of them, it will also help with asymptomatic folks as well.
That is good to know. And we know Virginia reported Friday that they did have asymptomatic cases at some of their long-term facilities, but they say this isn't unique. This isn't different than any other place, and that's why they are going to do more testing at these facilities. So I want to get your take on that because, I mean, once you're tested, should you be getting retested at this point?
That's a really good question. I mean, so the thing with the testing is, ideally, we'd like to be testing everybody, right? And ideally, it would be nice to not only test everybody, symptoms or not, is what I mean, but also with some relative frequency, right? Maybe depending on the type of job that you have, how high risk you are, et cetera, et cetera. We've often known that as a public health strategy, that's very important for getting our country back on track and opening the economy. The problem has been from the get-go, we have not had enough tests. That's why in the beginning, we weren't testing everybody. That's why people who didn't have symptoms in the beginning weren't getting tests. I couldn't get tests for my patients if they didn't have symptoms or meet a certain criteria. Even some of my patients with symptoms couldn't get tested. So as time has gone by, we've increased our testing capacity. That is changing, and that's becoming more widespread, the testing. But that's one of the reasons why testing is so important, to understand really where we stand with all of this. We have a little ways to go, but things are getting better. And certainly being aware of this issue is one of the best things we can do, and keep working to get to that point.
Well, that's why we appreciate you on this Memorial Day taking the time to sit down and talk with us more about it. Dr. Jen Caudle, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And if you want to connect with Dr. Jen Caudle, there are many ways, from her website to Twitter to Instagram and Facebook.